Hey Marius,
Hi Nick, good to see you.
good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
So today I want to talk about what it takes to excel for digital creators like me and Marius. Things we will discuss today will be your identity, the passion that you need, the foundations like environment where you will be working and living in. At the end, it will make you enjoy the progress, and this progress will make you happy. Hi, my name is Nick and I'm a software developer. Together with Marius, we run this podcast to discuss different psychological, philosophical things behind two successful digital creators.
Hi, my name is Marius. I'm a designer and I'd like to discuss these topics together with Nick in this podcast.
I wanted to think like, okay, what are these starting points that trigger us to actually choose this direction of going and try to excel? Put a lot of hours of work into that. And I think that's first is understanding like who we are, what is our identity.
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely.
And I look at myself and think like, okay, I found something that I like to do every day. That becomes a part of my identity. I understand who I am in this direction. Okay. I think this is first important point that characterize athletes or people with this kind of consistent contribution towards towards this success. Mm-hmm. And another thing which identifies myself are these values. Like after I know who I am in certain direction, I also know that what are my values in that kind of direction, let's say, in that at work, let's say. Mm-hmm. And within like whole my career, I identify that my values is doing what I like and shaping and understanding more what is that, mm-hmm. plus continuously learning things. So I want to know more. I want to expand my brain with more information related to what I like. And therefore, I'm explicitly seeking for these opportunities to learn. So not in a passive like learning mode, but in very active learning mode. These two values related to the work direction are driving me in the long run. And this is like this point, like what identifies myself. And I think that's very important. And many people, not only in our industries like design or IT or so, but in general in life, struggle with that to identify but who they are in this direction. Because you could have multiple directions in your life. You could be a family man, for example, and identify who you are there. You know, are you, in my case, I could say, are you a father who puts most of the time outside of the family to work and then maybe goes with the kids to the park only on the weekend? Or are you a father in the family and the husband who is very actively contributing, who managed to find a way to find time to be with kids and with my wife a lot of time, every day, you know? So this is also like, I throw here an example, how we identify ourselves in a different direction, okay? But let's go back to work direction, okay? Career direction. Yeah. And there, many people cannot like identify themselves in comparison to, let's say, my case, I believe your case too, where early on in our career, we identify who we want to be. Yes, it was shaped throughout the years. We changed, we tried this environment, another environment, that setup, another setup. But at the end, our identity was identified that, okay, I will be designer. I will do this and this related to design. I will stay with design for a lot of years. And the same for me for development, you know? Mm-hmm. How can we figure out what was the criteria or conditions that we figured this out and other people no. So what we did differently, that we came up to that point, okay, I want to be a developer, and for last 20 years I am, and you want to be designer, and you are for so many years. How come we came to that and we understood that that's who we are?
This is a very interesting conversation, and I think also the thoughts that you bring up. I think there are certain aspects to it, like different ones. Socially, of course, like you mentioned, education, coming back where we studies. So I think looking at the education system that was there when we were kids, probably different to what it is now. But the way I grew up is you don't really learn much about your own hobbies, right? You know, like maybe I had art lessons 1 hour per week or 2 hours per week, and you have all these other things that you work on. But finding the space, like you said, for example, I think starts also for athletes in primary education very early on. Like you were interested in becoming a football player because in your environment, that's something where you gain recognition, you have a good salary, you get to travel. So there's a lot of things attached to that job. And it comes out of sports, like in school or maybe with your friends. So I think that circle you're in socially, but also from education side, plays quite a role. Also probably genetics from your family. Also like the very early time where you have education in your family. Lots of factors, I think, that really like leave a mark on that journey that you take early on. And I have to say, for me, that's taken a long time. I think that until I like 15 or 16, I had no idea really what I wanted to do. Like, honestly, I kind of just got along in school. The only motivation I really had, looking at the word motivation, if you see it, I once heard it comes from like movere, which is Latin, just basically means what is moving you. And my motivation was basically just to go to the next, class, so I don't have to repeat. That was my motivation. And then I think once I got my first PC, which I also built myself step by step, like we didn't have the money, so I could get a PC, but I started writing reviews for an online website, and I slowly got to get the pieces of the PC. It was kind of a creative business process when I look back at it, already thinking about how can I make money to purchase the pieces. So I kind of did the writing for each hard drive, for the power supply, all the pieces that you needed. So I slowly kind of had some other motivation beside work. And I think what applies to both of us, that there was a point in that journey where we made a decision by ourselves. And I think that is something that a lot of people don't really get the chance to do. There's a lot of expectations from the families to become a lawyer, to become something that pays well. And in my case, it only happened because there was nobody really who cared about it at that time. And I kind of had to make up my mind by myself. So on the one side, I saw this idea of becoming a designer. I really like technology as well, writing the reviews. But at some point I had to make some money. Like there was not really the system of somebody paying for things. So I had to come up with something. And basically my mom said, okay, well, what I can teach you, what I know, which I really appreciate. She really helped me get better education, getting a primary teacher's degree, doing psychology. That kind of comes from her push, giving me good education. And with that education, I was able to run my business or talk to clients. So I'm really happy about that part. And I think, but also being in that situation where we have to make a decision, which I think also applies for you when you moved country. I'm curious to hear about that too from you. So I think that really influenced that situation. And the last thing I want to say is that we made this decision consciously. I think what you said before, a ballet dancer or a football player, they had that support maybe, or they said very early on, hey, cool, this is a hobby, was kind of a topic in school with my friends. I started making this my passion. And I really find it very funny on the one side that we have this distinction with work. Like you showed this video to me before where we said, okay, if it's work, then why do you like to do this? Why is it fun to you? Why do you like to learn about it? Why do you want to do this for 20 years and even another 20 years? So it's like other people would be like, when can I retire? But we will probably be working or doing this until we can't. So yeah, I think lots of factors. Yeah,
a really good point. About this. I agree. I mean, a lot of things impacts us from the childhood, especially because when you are a kid, you are motivated much easier rather than when you are an adult. And on me, a lot of things played the sports, because sports when I was a kid was my main interest. And I had a lot of motivation and gained a lot of very valuable life skills based on that. And also the second thing that I think that put a huge mark on whether I will be related to information technology or not is because my father brought the computer very early to our house.
Okay.
So he did a job on the computer. It was some office job, whatever, I don't remember, but the computer was there. And I remember even I just opened that computer and clicked everywhere I could. I opened all the apps until the computer was going down and my father had to just restart it with a button.
Nice user testing.
Yeah, so this was my first experience with the computer, and it seems I like that, and this set kind of foundation to continue having interest in this afterwards.
Cool. Like this. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I was curious. I didn't know that before. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one thing. That's, I think, a huge mark in where I am now. And interesting what, at the beginning, you get this motivation and you have certain factors that affect you, and then you start doing something. So my first project was the website for a class at school.
Yeah.
When I was still in secondary school, I already opened Microsoft Front Page back then and tried to put these blocks together and build a website. And that's kind of turns slowly but surely into a certain hobby, while you are still a schoolboy and so forth. And now my kind of interest is to figure out the psychology, but what keeps us into our career, into our job for so long, because it's not anymore a hobby and it's not anymore just fun. Because look, I can easily give an example about Rafa Nadal, my favorite athlete.
Yeah.
He's going on the court with a pain in the body. Most of the years, at least last 10, he was going with a pain in the body. So why he's doing this? Considering that he's rich, it's not anymore a hobby. He has to travel every day or every week here and there, not seeing his family, not kind of completely enjoying the life, being limited going outside because fans are everywhere. He has so much negative, I would say, impact on not doing that, but still he commits.
Yeah. That's the right word.
So the same on our side. We could say, okay, at the beginning it was really just fun. You just open the computer, design something quickly or even not quickly, spend many days on something because you were so interested and so driven by these motivations. How cool is that? I can try this, I can do this, I can put together this website, I could experiment, All these were just hobby motivation that drive. But then within a year you understood that there are many obstacles on the way, which are tough.
Yes.
Tough to turn it into the career where you get paid. Tough to get proper soft skills, which are not related to you just sitting on the computer, but they are mandatory for you to success.
Yeah.
There are tough things that you will have a family relationship that will need time to on that. There will be tough moments that not every project will be so like absolute fun.
Yeah.
There will be some negotiations and conflicts with your clients, with your companies, and that's all part of the work, and we still go through it. We still don't give up, So what are these factors that kind of could be identified within athletes, the same on us, that keeps us rolling on, and as you said, probably will keep us in the business until we just can't do it.
Yeah, right. So it's an aspect, you don't see at the first place. You see Rafa Nadal, you see he's a very passionate tennis player. You see other athletes. But I think making this a job, right? Like when you go back to school and you were selected to become an athlete, you often hear these stories that the parents do a lot of work to get the kids into the right university or into the right training. You also have to do a lot of work to get there, like you slowly start to see there's these obstacles. It becomes a business because you need some kind of funding to do that school. Obviously, you're not going to do another job. So you want to focus for like 6, 8, 10 hours a day to do this sport. So I think you slowly start to see that there is other parts to this. And a lot of people don't see that. Like even if he tried to explain, what do you do? Like, you are a programmer, but that you move to another country and you learn a language that's not very easy to learn in the beginning. I mean, once you know English, of course, it's a different story. But I really was bad in school. Like, I barely passed the tests in English. Like, I was really bad. And also for the first years I was online, then I found some friends like you, some other friends in other countries. I practice a lot. And now I would say it's even kind of like I'm more like a bilingual person. Like, I think in English, I dream in English. Yeah, but I think that's one part. And I often hear this metaphor of the octopus where, of course the octopus is swimming, but it also has 7 other arms doing other things. Like, it has to do finance, team management, checking in with clients. Like, we just have this week. There are parts where it gets very tough. You have to do negotiations. And these are all the parts that people don't see when he's getting on the court. Like, they don't see his pain, or they don't see that he's thinking about the commitment. I think that's an important part. I also thought about that while you mentioned it, because you could also say, like, no, not today. I feel too bad. I could also get up today and say, like, no, I don't want to go into this meeting. But I think the commitment builds up on the one side. I was just thinking while you talked about it, that of course you also, with these other arms of the octopus, now you have a financial responsibility to your family, which you also want to manage, to your salary, to your rent, taxes, whatever is there, like all the things that need to be paid. So I think that arm might help you out to stabilize you to that commitment in that moment. And yeah, I think it is. I'm just so happy, like every day I wake up and the first thought that I have is like, how can I solve this? It's not that I wake up and I feel like, oh my God, this day. But I'm like, yeah, I want to keep on doing this. So let's find a way how can I solve the issue.
Yeah. So, yeah, really interesting what you mentioned. I think that, yeah, cool. I mean, I'm enjoying this. Yeah, really good. Okay. So when everything came up to the point that we realized that actually we choose this path, we identified this path with ourselves. Now that's part of us, part of our daily interest, let's say, like you mentioned, our willing to do it, continuously doing it every day after waking up. And so now another thing that you just touched is we automatically get diversified knowledge and experience, because this is the only way for us to succeed forward.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, you start as a football player to just go to trainings, do some passes, do some things around,
Yeah.
Then within time, when you get more and more into that business, into that
it is
kind of activity, you understand that there is much more than just designing in Figma, Photoshop back then, or whatever tool you used to do, or just writing a code. To survive and to succeed, to excel in your area.
Yeah.
You have to manage relationship with people. That's a part of the job of everyone. Even Rafa Nadal does this in his sports career. You have to manage your finances. You have to manage your partnerships. You have to manage your inventory. You have to manage your demand on your service, on your invitations to tournaments or whatever. You automatically understand that naturally when you move on, that there are many things that you will have to learn, have to gain knowledge about, manage, maintain the experience, because it's a part of your success. And this is, I think, really, really useful. And this is what distinguishes a lot creators from, let's say, employees or so, because we handle everything on our own, especially at the beginning. Yeah, when you grow, when you can prove that you have a certain income, revenue, popularity, demand, you could certainly delegate, sure. But at the beginning, you start all solo. You manage all these processes solo. Because also, how do you hire someone in something that you don't have any clue about?
Totally.
That will be a kind of blind hire, blind delegation. So you need to know these roots, the foundation at least. You don't have to be best at that, but you have to have this base knowledge, how it works, what it does, what shall happen, and so this will help you also to select people later to help you with that.
Yeah.
So I like this a lot, that this is diversified experience we gain throughout our throughout the path, throughout our life on this journey. And this makes us stronger because we excel in different dimensions too. And in general, this makes us stronger as creators. We could switch, we could use these things later. And the important to note is this. That's really important. When I was playing football a lot, I believing that I will become a professional football player. And so I gained a lot of valuable skills that I transferred to my next career path. So then I changed, okay, I will be now developer. After many years of football, and I grew up into adult, I realized that I will be developer, okay, in my 18 or 20 years, when I was 18 or 20 years old. And I kind of didn't start it from scratch. Well, I started from scratch in a certain path, not a path, but discipline. As a programmer, I had to learn programming, sure. But I brought with me a lot of valuable skills that are still supporting my career. I brought with me the stamina. I brought with me resilience. I brought with me grit, what I learned with being in sports. I brought with me already understanding of human psychology, how to succeed in that or another stuff, how other people, athletes will behave around you. And it could be, it's like the same in life, you know. One story here I wanted to share is when we were doing some dry trainings in like running around in some uphill and downhill area with the team, I realized at some point like, okay, how can I actually run faster? How can I like get the advantage against the peers? And I was thinking, not just you have to push hard or so, I think how smartly to do it. What is it? There should be some psychological way. We were just 16, 15 years old. There should be some psychological way how to get advanced. And I realized that when people run downhill, that people try to relax. They try to a bit get kind of break from running straight or running uphill.
Okay.
And I decided, okay, when we run downhill, I will speed up. While everybody is taking a break, like running, because you can easily run downhill, the body is moving on its own, you know, down. And I realized that actually, if I speed up, I already get an advantage, like psychological. Okay. And I tried that. And then I tried another thing. I tried, okay, the hardest is to go up, to go like uphill. And I realized that everybody is very suffering that. And I realized, okay, but what if I try to, at the last like 10% of the hill where I push the hardest, where everybody already is tired and feel like, okay, well, a little bit and we will be straight already. I push hard, you know, and I pushed and it gave advantage. And it gave psychological advantage. So I already mentally, before the uphill, which let's say is taking 500 meters, like slow uphill, I already mentally prepared myself, okay, I need to fit my energy into such a setup that at the end, 100 meters or 50 meters, I'm not fully drained. So I pushed, but not super hard at the beginning. And then I felt, okay, I actually mentally prepared, physically prepared, and I pushed last 100 with maximum. And this gave a huge advantage. And then in the straight pieces where there were no hills, then I was running like in average, like everybody. But this is an example that I reflected within years, one of many, many examples, that understanding human psychology, understanding how people behave could help you to gain a privilege, to gain an advantage.
Such a good experience.
And I think this correlates to this statement like work smart rather than work hard. It doesn't mean that I had not to run at all or so, you know, I could take a bike and instead bike. No, it doesn't cancel your active contribution to work hard. But if you work smart and hard, this accelerates.
It's a really nice way to put it. I really like the experience he just explained. Touches on so many points. I think, being so clever to realize that when you were so young on the one side, but I think also really having the passion for running. It's funny, like when he talked about this, I kind of made a comparison with work. Being fit on the one side, but also liking to do this, because I think, when I compare myself with you, when I was a kid, I really didn't like sports just because I was not very good. I was mostly overweight until I was like 14. So I was really occupied in my brain just to keep up running, just like being there. So I think also for a lot of people, work feels like that, to be able to cope during the day. Oh, I need to get to the office by 8:30. I need to bring my kid to school before, like all the, it's exhausting, just like running the whole day. But being able to excel like you did, I can just say, we both are freelancers and I like the work that we do. But being able to find something like that when you're a kid, or even later, I was just 17, which is pretty old then, that you enjoy so much that it just happens, like you run, you do football, but while that happens, it's just automation, but you are able to think about these topics. And it's such a big advantage to be able to do that, because when you are also in a meeting or you start a project, it's funny, I am in the situation where I feel like I'm exhausted from literally, it's the same word sprint, right? Like we use the word sprint for development. Yeah, it's just taken from running. To be able to have that knowledge that you gained is so important, because I'm not going to push in the second sprint so hard that I cannot run up the hill. But by the end, when we want to release it, I still have the energy to push through and get it done. Yeah. So that's a lot of valuable experiences. And I think they're nice to make them like you did in your childhood.
Yeah. I think it's science, and it comes only when you have this identity that you identified. You are a software developer, okay? You want to be a creator, how to succeed. And this kind of drives you. What I started our conversation today is learning. It automatically forces you to learn different dimensions, different diversified subjects. Yeah. You just run around with your team, and you are not just running around. You are thinking how to be more effective. What is a hack to go faster, that you could do, you could sustain, and so. Yeah. And this helps you in your career.
Yes, totally.
Every day, different things. Yeah. A simple example would be like, once I was pair programming with some colleague a few years ago, and this colleague was using very actively keyboard shortcuts. And I realized how productive that person is because of not doing so many clicks I did, to achieve the same. Yeah. And this inspired me to learn this. Now I'm master of these keyboard shortcuts in programming tool. And this is very productive. This helps me a lot. This saves my time. Yeah. And when other people see how am I doing this in public or in work with people, when I do it in a shared screen or so, this looks like magic.
Yeah.
Because I'm hitting this, and things are happening just like everybody wants, Yeah. And this skill looks like magic. So, but you need the passion. You need an interest. You need an identity. That you are this. Then it's easy. Then it kind of automatically comes to your brain, these ideas, how to polish, how to fine-tune your process, your workflow, your result. And there I want to come up to the point that, look, what makes us happy at the end? Sure, we need financial sustainability to finance ourselves, our families, our environment or so. Sure, this is a mandatory thing. We need some base where to live, to take a shower, to sleep. All this is necessary, and we manage here, at least in Europe, we manage there. Yeah. But then when you get there, when you get to these foundations that you have it in place, then what makes you happy is a process.
Yes. Yeah.
Is a process of being creator, You wake up every day, just like you said, and you want to do that job. Yes. You want to open that Figma file, to design it, to fine-tune it, to discuss it with a colleague, to propose a new idea how to turn this design into different one, more effective, more whatever. Yeah. You do keyboard shortcuts, you learn things, you move on. Then you think, okay, how can I increase my revenue? Not because you just need more money, but because it's a part of your passion to do this. You think, okay, I will do trainings, I will do mentorship, I will do workshops. because it's kind of what I'm doing already at work. I kind of train people. Now let's formulate it in a bit different shape and sell it as a product. Not because I need money, you know. I'm fine. My foundations are there. I don't need an expensive car. I don't need a huge, I don't know, yacht or so. No, I want to prove myself again that I could excel in this another direction which is related to my identity, you know. And you see even how I'm speaking now. It drives me, you know. It drives me, you know, to speak about that, to do this podcast with you. It's not based on some monetization revenue we make from that ever, you know, nothing like that. I like talking about this, about the topics we discuss here. I like my work. I want to wake up and continue doing that. And I want to overcome these challenges. And therefore, from outside, like you said, people don't see that Rafa Nadal has a pain. People don't see how much time and effort we put and hard work into all this, you know. But they see how cool it is from outside. They see this energy that drives us. How come they think this happens? But you see a combination of identity, passion, you know, your interests in that. And obviously the foundation that I means that you have it in place. And then you kind of, you are not driven anymore by certain milestone, you know. You could be, let's say, driven at the beginning that you never had an Olympic medal, and that could be your biggest kind of aim, biggest target. You didn't won any big tournaments or didn't want many big tournaments, then you strive for that. You try to put all the energy how to train yourself to win. But when you completed 20 Grand Slams that Rafa Nadal did, then what motivates you? Process. Process motivates you. That you have this routine. You wake up, you go to the training, no matter in which city, country you are now. And you just do your job. And then you have a match and you try to play in the match. And you, while playing, you are already very advanced because you spent many years in doing your job. And now you could think while you do it, how can I do another hack against this player? You know, where should I run faster? Where should I hit a spin? How can I make it something unexpected? You know, this comes up because you are driven by passion. And therefore people are so much like watching that because they see Rafa Nadal against Federer, what they will do, you know, because they are so already advanced. And now somebody will hit such a point that nobody ever seen in history because he just wanted to try it and it worked out, you know.
You're just so passionate. You're already making me a tennis fan now. Yeah, it's such a good statement. I think what you just said, I mean, it's just the case what you share with us, which is so exciting about this work and doing it like this. I mean, that's kind of the idea why I do it too. You're so passionate, it makes you happy. And I think really just to round it up in the end, I cannot add more to this, but to saying like what motivates you, you know? I think it shouldn't be just hanging out on the couch and like being very comfortable. I think a lot of things are made for convenience food, comfortable couches, chairs, whatever, you know. It's kind of being sold as the good thing. Work little, you know, retire early, earn a lot of money. But does it really make you happy? You know, like when you are on the couch, or of course sometimes it's nice, or eat the food. But over time, I think it's actually not healthy. And I think what he just mentioned, you know, put in the work. Those people who go running or do sports, they know how nice it feels after you've done it. And that's basically just what he said. So I think really getting rid of that idea, this has to be work and to be bad, to be nice, to be able to find something like that passion, that profile that you mentioned, the identity, to have that and to follow it. You know, nobody's going to be everybody a good husband or a good runner. I'm not really, but you will find something else you can excel in, and to find that and be able to do it, it's so much joy. I think it's great.
Yeah. So identity, passion, foundation, this will make you happy from the process.
Yeah, nice.
Cool. Yeah, thank you very much for the discussion, Marius. It was interesting, many interesting points. We discussed human psychology and ourselves, our identity, where we are, what we do, why we do. I think it's kind of retrospective also for us, useful to look back at all these years and see where we are now and what we are doing. That was great.
Yeah, totally. And thank you. You just reminded me how I can tackle some other situations, not give the whole thing while you're running downhill, but keep some energy for the rest. That was a good reminder right now. Thanks, Nick.